Welcome to the preview video for Chapter 24, Section 1. Chapter 24, World War Looms. Our objectives with Chapter 24. I can describe the rise of dictators. I can describe the beginnings of a world war. And I can explain the American response in the 1930s. Section 1, Dictators Threaten World Peace. Our objectives. I can identify the types of governments that took power in Russia, Italy, Germany, Japan, and Spain after World War I. And I can describe the details of America's turn to isolationism in the 1930s. Our terms and names. We have Joseph Stalin, communist dictator of the Soviet Union. Totalitarian, government that has complete control over its citizens and puts down all opposition. Benito Mussolini, fascist dictator of Italy. Fascism, political system based on a strong, centralized government headed by a dictator. Adolf Hitler, Nazi dictator of Germany. Nazism, fascist political philosophy of Germany under Nazi dictator Hitler. Francisco Franco, fascist dictator of Spain. Neutrality Acts, laws passed by Congress to ban the sale of arms or loans to nations at war. Let's explore Objective 1, taking a look at the types of governments that came to power following World War I. We begin in the Soviet Union, where Joseph Stalin came to power in 1924. It was his goal to create a model communist state. And one of the characteristics of communism is that the state took over control of the farms. There were no longer private farms. They became collectives. The government also took over industry. The Soviet Union became a leading industrial power, but it should remember that it was also a police state, a totalitarian government, a government with complete control over its citizens. Individuals had no rights, and the government put down all opposition. It's believed that while Stalin was in power, between 8 and 13 million people were put to death in the Soviet Union. In Germany, Adolf Hitler came to power. Germany was embarrassed, humiliated, and angry following World War I. They didn't feel it was fair that they had the majority of the blame and the majority of the reparations to pay in terms of World War I. Hitler, using a political philosophy called Nazism, hoped to unite the German people into a new empire, a new Reich. And he believed that Germans, especially blonde, blue-eyed Aryans, were the master race. Nazism combined extreme nationalism, racism, and expansionism. So that nationalism was all about Germany getting its pride back and becoming a powerful nation again. The racism is all about blonde, blue-eyed Aryans being the master race and being superior to everyone else. And expansionism, we see it here where Hitler believed that Germany needed to expand. Hitler's approach appealed to the unemployed, the desperate, and resentful Germans during the time of the Great Depression. In Italy, meanwhile, Benito Mussolini, Il Duce, came to power, and his philosophy, fascism, strong centralized government headed by a dictator. So Mussolini was a dictator. It was also a totalitarian state, but different than the Soviet Union, it was anti-communist. And here again we see a characteristic of extreme nationalism playing a role in terms of the government of Italy. Japan, following World War I, we have military leaders taking control, and they believed that Japan needed more land and resources. So Japan attacked Manchuria, which was a province of China, in 1931. The League of Nations protested, but Japan kept Manchuria. This expansion by Japan emboldened Hitler and Mussolini. It gave them confidence in terms of their own plans to expand. Hitler began rebuilding the German army, which was against the Treaty of Versailles, and Mussolini expanded Italy's power by capturing Ethiopia. The fifth government that we want to concern ourselves with is the government of Spain. Francisco Franco led a rebellion to overthrow the elected government. Western democracy's response was to send only food and clothing to the democratic forces. Hitler and Mussolini, on the other hand, supported Franco with troops and weapons. As a result, Franco won in 1939, and Europe had yet another totalitarian government. Now, what was the role of the United States during this time? This is the 30s. Well, what was happening in the US is that isolation became more popular as most Americans wanted the United States to stay out of any foreign conflicts. Neutrality acts were passed by Congress, and they actually banned loans or arms sales to any nation at war. Now, FDR tried to get around the Neutrality Acts by sending aid to China in 1937, and his rationale was that China had not declared war. FDR talked of quarantining the aggressors, but the isolationists forced Franklin Delano Roosevelt to back down. And that is the conclusion of our preview for Section 1.